Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler. Together we make up Kovray, a couple that loves to play board games.
And today we'll be teaching you Cascadia Rolling, rivers
and hills. Cascadia Rolling is designed by Randy Flynn, the art is done by Beth Sobel, and it's published by Flatout Games, who helped sponsor this video.
Let's head over to the table and learn how to play. Just to note, these two games are a prototype, and the final version may be subject to change. As always, you'll begin by setting up. Each player will receive 2 personal dice. The dice are slightly different, so make sure you have one with a bear and one with a split salmon hawk as one of its faces. Each player will then receive a tally sheet, a player aid card, and a writing utensil. You'll now decide which environment you want to play. Each plays differently with a varying complexity which can be found listed on the top right of your sheet. We'll use environment sheet B to teach the game, but stay tuned for the end of the video for explanations of the other environment sheets. Now that each player is set up, let's look at the central area. You'll place 4 central dice within reach of all players. You'll then prepare the habitat cards by separating the decks into Tier 1 and Tier 2 piles. You'll place all the cards face down and remove one of each of the 5 habitats from each deck. This will leave you with 10 Tier 1 and 10 Tier 2 cards. You'll shuffle the decks and place Tier 1 on top of Tier 2. This is your habitat deck for the game. You'll flip 1 card to start. This will form the first 4 card spaces that the habitat cards will occupy as the game progresses. Finally, you'll shuffle and reveal 4 completion cards. You'll place the cards left to right in the order you revealed them, either below or above the 4 card spaces. Discount completion cards, cards with a blue background, will go on top, while bonus completion cards, brown background, will go on the bottom. If it's your first time playing, we recommend that you use the cards numbered 1 to 4 as denoted in the bottom right. You're now ready to play. Cascadia Rolling Rivers or Hills is played over exactly 20 rounds. Each round, dice will be rolled, wildlife collected, and habitats completed, filling your environment sheet. At the end of the game, the player with the most points wins. Now before we start, we'll note that there's 5 different habitat types and wildlife types. As you've noted from setup, you'll see the same amount of habitats. However, there's a hierarchy of rarity and value for the wildlife, with bears being the most valuable and rare, while salmon being the least valuable and most common. Now let's give you an overview of a round. Each round has 3 steps, which all players will take simultaneously. Let's start with roll dice. Each round, one player will roll the 4 central dice, and all players will roll their 2 personal dice in their own play area. That's the first step. The second step is collect wildlife. Based on what was rolled in the center and your own playing area, you'll collect wildlife. Now you'll primarily collect 1 wildlife type, but the central special die and dice actions provide you opportunities to take more animals or multiple animal types in a single round. The first step here is to reference the central special die. It has 6 unique faces. Let's quickly go through them. 2 are just wildlife, a choice of a bear or 2 salmon, or a hawk or an elk. 1 is a wild animal, which represents 1 animal of a wildlife type of your choice. This one lets you use your 1 personal die twice. So when choosing a wildlife type, if taking one of your personal die, you'll be able to take it twice. This one is called +1 other. After selecting which wildlife type you'll collect, you'll select 1 other die that was not part of that collection and take the wildlife on it. Last but not least, this die will reduce dice actions by 1 nature token. This does mean that the down convert, which usually costs 1, can be taken for free. The Rolling Hills special die will have an additional 2 faces. 1 that lets you take any 3 dice, and 1 that lets you re-roll your personal dice up to 2 times. These are all the die faces and a great segue into the next part of the step. Take dice action. Now this step is optional, but it may help you out in your wildlife collection. There are 3 dice actions you can take, but you may only choose to take 1 action per round. These utilize the nature tokens you have to help maximize the value of your wildlife collection. Down convert. You can pay 1 nature token to convert all faces of 1 wildlife type to the wildlife below it. Up convert. You can pay 2 nature tokens to convert all faces of 1 wildlife type to the wild type above it. 2 types. You can pay 3 nature tokens to take 2 wildlife types rather than taking a single one. An important note here, these dice actions can only be taken for the wildlife you take from the dice. You cannot convert your existing wildlife on your tally sheet. Lastly, you'll record the collected animals on your tally sheet. Let's go through an example. The special die here allows me to take 1 of my personal dice twice. I'll choose to take foxes, and I'll use a nature token to down convert the elk into foxes, meaning I'm taking 5 foxes this turn. And that's step 2. Finally, the third step, which is optional, complete a habitat card. If you have enough wildlife, you may complete one of the habitat cards in the middle. In the first round, only one habitat card will be available for completion. However, as the game continues, you usually have an option of 4. Let's fast forward a few rounds to give you a better idea of this phase. To complete a habitat card, you'll go through these 5 steps. Number 1, apply discounts. If the habitat you're completing has a discount completion card above, you may choose to apply the discount on this card. For example, you can pay a nature token to reduce the cost of the habitat by any one wildlife. Number 2, pay costs. You'll cross off the required animals for the habitat type off your tally sheet. Number 3, take the habitat and completion card bonuses. You'll check if the habitat grants you any nature tokens or if there's a completion card bonus below. You may take these bonuses in any order. Number 4, mark environment sheet. Here's where the game differs depending on the environment sheet you're playing. You completed a forest habitat here. On your sheet, you will outline the hexagons starting left or right equal to the value of the habitat, which is 3. You'll then proceed to the final step. Number 5, taking environment sheet bonuses. We surrounded an elk, which we will add to the tally sheet, 2 victory points, which we'll circle to remember, and finally a rain icon. Since we've obtained a rain icon, we'll proceed to the matching icon below and choose a bonus that has not yet been taken from that section. Bonuses here can be wildlife, nature tokens, victory points, or even a free habitat space crossed off anywhere on your map. Now, if you ever end up filling one row completely, any additional habitats of that type or any type you've completed will go into the overflow section, which will score your additional points and grant you bonuses. Generally, the more habitats you fill in, the more points you'll obtain. And of course, you'll want to strategize on which to fill out, as bonuses you obtain can help you further progress your game, earning you the most victory points. Now, you may choose not to complete a habitat card, as this is an optional action, and save your wildlife for a future round. Once all players have completed the 3 steps, the round will end. At this point, you'll slide all the habitat cards to the right, and flip over a new habitat card from the draw pile. If there are more than 4 cards face up, you'll take one on the furthest right and discard it. The game ends when there's no more habitat cards in your draw pile at round end. This means that once the last card is flipped, this round will be the last one played. After finishing the last round, you'll proceed to final scoring. You'll first tally the farthest value of each habitat you've reached. You'll then proceed to tally any bonus points on your sheet. These are the bonus points between your habitats and sun and rain bonuses. Finally, you'll receive a point for every 5 leftover combination of wildlife or nature tokens. You'll compare your scores, and the player with the most wins. Now, let's give you a quick rundown of all the other player sheets. Environment Sheet A. Here, you'll write down the number of the corresponding habitat you've completed from top to bottom. Each time you reach a bonus by filling out either a row or every 2 of each habitat type, you'll circle the victory points and select a sun bonus below. Your final score will be the tally of the values in each row along with any bonus victory points. This sheet in Rolling Hills and Rivers is essentially the same, with the exception of the thematic text describing the Columbia River in Rolling Rivers and the Zumwalt Prairie in Rolling Hills. The theme differentiation will be present in each of the sheets. Environment Sheet B you've seen here. It works slightly differently in Rolling Hills, as instead of the sun and rain bonuses, you'll collect landmarks, which can score you additional points for each row or column you complete, along with wildlife types and additional habitat bonuses. You'll always cross these off in order, following the arrows. Environment Sheet C. Here you'll outline the hexagons equal to the number and type from the habitat card you've completed. You'll start adjacent to a hexagon already outlined on your sheet, which in the beginning is the star spaces. Outlined hexagons will score you points at the end of the game and grant you bonuses which you can use immediately. You'll collect sun and rain bonuses as before, crossing off your choice of the bonus in each column, making sure to follow the arrows when crossing off each icon. You'll also obtain landmarks and gather bonuses for those as well. Each habitat type you completely fill out will earn you an additional 4 points, and if you complete additional habitat spaces of that type, you'll fill in the overflow section. The difference between hills and rivers here is the layout of the map and some of the bonuses. Finally, Environment Sheet D. We'll speak about these two separately. In Rolling Rivers, the sheet is played the most similarly to Cascadia the board game. When filling out the habitat, you'll not only fill in the number for the type, but you'll use the wildlife spent here within these hexagons. You can only use the quantity of animals on the habitat sheet, but in any combination of your choice. For example, in this mountain habitat, I can write in 2 hexagons. I can use the wildlife spent, meaning I can take 2 hawks, 1 hawk and an elk, 1 salmon and an elk, etc. I'll choose to take 2 elk. Now each animal scores differently, and this will be the primary way of scoring in this environment sheet. For example, you'll score 3 points per pair of adjacent bears. You'll gain bonuses for filling in adjacent hexagons or surrounding an area with 3. Additionally, each habitat you'll complete will grant you 3 bonus points. And if in the habitat all 5 wildlife types are present, you'll earn an additional 3 points as a wildlife diversity bonus. And there's also an overflow area here, granting you additional points and habitats for you to fill in. Now for rolling hills, you'll fill in the habitat spaces as you did in rolling rivers, marking each space with a wildlife type from the habitat card. But here you'll work to complete as many of the 15 regions as you can. Each region you complete will grant you points and a bonus. If all the animals are identical in the region, you'll also gain the same wildlife bonus. You'll score points for wildlife diversity in each habitat types and landmarks as before. And that's the environment sheets. Now there's also solo mode and scenarios and achievements as seen in other Flatout games. Many different ways to play and goals to achieve. Finally, the last thing we'll mention is mixing versions. There's a significant amount of variation here. For instance, you can use either of the central dice sets when playing. You can also combine and mix all the habitat cards from both versions in Tier 1 and Tier 2 decks. When setting up, you'll simply shuffle and choose 2 from each habitat type for each deck to make your deck of 20. You can also mix up the completion cards for even more variety, combine them and shuffle and deal 4 for each game. And last but not least, you now have 8 sets of personal dice, which means you can play with up to 8 players using both copies, and technically even more with even more copies.
And that's Cascadia Rolling.
Do you have any questions? Feel free to leave them in the comments down below. We love Rolling Rice and we love to chat more Cascadia Rolling Rivers and Hills with you.
And of course, if you'd like to learn more about these games, check out our description down below for some links where you can learn more.
So much learning. Now if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and check out our channel for more Roll and Write content, because we sure love them.
Until then, we'll see you later.
Bye.